Okay, good evening. I think if we're just checking the mics, but I think we've got those going. I'm not so sure.
Testing. No, it's kind of in and out, right? Testing.
Okay,
Testing.
in and out. Apologies for the technical checks here, but good evening. This is a work session of the Greenbelt City Council. I am Mayor Pro Tem Weaver, facilitating the meeting. Mayor Jordan is out of town. My fellow council members, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Danielle McKinney, council member.
Jenny Pompey, council member.
Rodney Roberts, City Council.
So we hold these work sessions to discuss various topics with stakeholders and staff, and all work sessions and meetings of the City Council are open to the public, with the exception of closed sessions as allowed by state law. Tonight we've got two topics. We're going to start by talking about the Recreation Center budget, and then we're going to talk about the recodification process for the city code, and then followed by that we will have a closed session to discuss some personnel matters. So without further ado, Mr. Salmaron, I don't know if you want to give any sort of introduction or pass it off to Rec. Microphone.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Weaver. Good evening, Council. Good evening, team and citizens. The Recreations is our second largest budget, and I think it speaks for itself how it touches so many of our residents. This particular budget has some challenges. As you know, we had over $4 million deficit. The direct impact to the recreations budget is trainings and other direct services, and that's primarily due to the fact that there are very little vacancies that we could hold off in the recreations budget. Additionally, the recreations budget, it's affected by actually some loss of revenue that we're projecting due to the indoor pool being closed. I've reported to council that work is well underway. We're now in week 3 of the work, and that's going to continue through. The timeline is through September. As things are moving, we're hopeful that we'll be able to finish ahead of schedule, but we'll continue maintain the timeline as proposed to council through September. That's overall the impact on the budget. The work that Greg and the team does, it's an incredible amount of work. We have sold out or oversubscribed camps, a lot of recreational programming classes. Really, this team is driving the culture programming for the city, along with the recreation and athletic activities. But I'm proud of the work that Greg and the team have been able to accomplish and will continue to accomplish.
Thank you, City Manager. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, for having us, the Recreation Department, here tonight. It's always nice to have the year. Testing. Better?
There we go.
Okay, all right. So always nice to have this yearly check-in. I have my colleagues with me. Ann Ottomans is the... This is confusing. Ann Ottomans is our Assistant Director of Recreation Programs. Andrew Phelan is the Assistant Director of Operations and Facilities. I have supervisors with us tonight as well. Nicole DeWald, Art Supervisor. Latoya Fisher is the Recreation Program Supervisor. Trevin Green is our newest supervisor of the Community Center. And Stephen Parks, sitting on the ledge, is our Aquatic Supervisor. And in the back is Megan Searing-Young, who is the Museum Director. So what we'll do is I'll give you a brief overview, touch a little bit on the admin section of the budget, and possibly break to ask some questions at that point, and then we'll go through each section of the budget if that works for council.
Sounds good.
Okay. The Recreation Department, the FY26 proposed budget encompasses 9 sub-budgets: administration, arts, aquatic and fitness, museum, therapeutic recreation, community center, recreation centers, recreation programs, and special events. The proposed total expenditures is around $8.5 million, with total revenues approximately around $2 million. It's important to know that about $2 million of that is in the parks budget, which is managed by the Public Works Department. Total FTEs are proposed to decrease by half, as City Manager touched base on. That's the vacant aquatics coordinator position. We don't think that will be a big deal. We will be able to hire that in January, which the timing will be good so we can get that person acclimated and ready for the summer months that will be, open the outdoor pool and the indoor pool when we are the most busy. The FY26 proposed budget additions in relation to FY25 is a 2% COLA for non-class employees, which this will be the third year in a row that council has, if approved, will happen. Just to remind you, in FY23, council approved the non-class minimum wage of $15 an hour, which was a couple years ahead of the state. And then the two following years, FY24 and FY25, you also approved a 2% COLA for non-class staff. And this has really helped us a lot in retaining good staff and attracting new staff as well, and in helping with our morale. So that was really good, and we really appreciate that. This budget also has money to develop a special events team made of non-classified staff, so more employment for them. About a year ago, the Recreation Department took on all city special events, not just our department ones, but the community ones as well. And we've learned a lot over the year. We brought some formalization to the process. We're still working it out. One thing we found is we were having park rangers cover a lot of those special events, and we really want to get them back into the field and doing what they're supposed to do, develop this team, and make our special events even better this way by training other staff. As City Manager touched base on, there were some budget cuts. We tried to, share the pain throughout the department. We reduced membership, education, and training, administration, public notices and uniforms, aquatics, hiring, waiting 6 months to fill the position, the arts, special events, and overtime, museum, special programs, and miscellaneous, and rec centers, overtime, and departmental equipment. If funding became available, I would recommend restoring program accounts first, followed by education and training. We had a lot of capital projects and ARPA projects we were working on. The outdoor pool water filtration replacement was completed. The dance studio annex was completed. The Spring Hill Lake Recreation Center outdoor play area is completed. Greenbelt Station green space improvement, partially. We got the shade structures in around the park, and we're waiting on a start date to get the tables and shade in the lower part of the park. Hopefully that'll get done this spring. Buddy Park Master Plan, that will be on a city council agenda for approval, not the next one, but the one after that. The Prince George's County Memorial Library System Story Walk is completed. Ball field improvements have started. Schramm Hills Park has that field's been skinned and graded, and irrigation system will be put in next week sometime. And then we'll move on to Braden Field. The Buddy Attic Park pavilions, hoping to have those installed before the 4th of July. Don't have a start date yet, but we're hoping before the 4th of July. And then the Museum Education Center is a project as well that we're trying to get off the ground, and Megan can talk more about that when she comes up to talk about the museum. I work with a very resilient staff. I believe one of the best in the state. We serve our community with compassion and kindness, and we strive to give a good experience to all the people that come into our program. So happy to answer any questions on what I just talked about, if there are any.
Well, and I think recreation, we know you do a lot, and you're one of among the most visible with all the events that are happening. So I know our residents appreciate all the all of the work that goes into all of those special events and the classes and the coordination and all of that sort of thing. So certainly much appreciated.
We are very frontward-facing department. Before I came up here tonight, I just took a walk around the facility. We had many people in the skate park. We had a Little League game going on. We had a baseball practice going on. Many joggers, walkers up and down the service road, dog walking, baby strollers. Just a lot going on. Beautiful day as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was great to see all that.
And I'm sorry, just a technical thing. Are the outlets here plugged in? Because it's telling me that my laptop is not actually plugged in and my battery may be about to die. Sorry. Any questions about sort of general things or the admin section? I think just a compliment that I would pass on. I appreciate how much work I think you all are doing for inclusive programming. I know you've done some special training for the summer camps, but also at the egg roll last week. Appreciated the adding of sort of an area for those who might not be able to handle the sensory overload of being in the area with all the kids flooding in. So I appreciate that you're keeping those ideas in mind for not just the summer camps, but lots of other activities. So.
Yeah, that was a new thing we had at the egg hunt. Maybe Ann can touch base on that a little more when we get to special events and share some of the feedback that we've had on that. So, yeah, and in your budget, there's a chart in there. And I can't see it on mine because it didn't print out, but you can see all the interactions that we've had through registrations and just that the office staff have to handle. It's thousands and thousands of registrations and reservations and changes and everything. So these guys, the office administration staff, take on a ton of work and do a great job with keeping it organized.
Any other questions? Staffing? Yes, go ahead, Ms. Kennedy.
I was just wondering if maybe at a high level, just for folks who are listening in, it seems as though your expenditures were increased, and I appreciate you worked very hard to get it a balanced budget. I'm wondering if you could speak to maybe some of the key areas where you were able to get the budget balance to meet some of those additional expenditures.
So most of those expenditures are due to the 2% COLA and the 3% performance. That's the bulk of our budget. It's probably a good 70% of our budget is wages and salaries. So when you factor that in with our non-class and our classified, there's where you get the big increase.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments on that? And I think something that I appreciate is seeing that I didn't realize was a plan for the next the next budget was to start thinking about sort of maybe a second tier for those non-classified staff that have some special expertise or extra certifications required. But that sounds like that's something we can expect for fiscal 27.
That's correct. We do have some staff that have worked with us for a long time that work 20 to 30 hours a week. That are specialized, whether that be in the arts field or even preschool, some lifeguards, pool managers. We think it's important that some of these people that continuously work with us year-round have some type of benefits. One example would be we had an employee who had a death in the family. She's been working with us for over 20 years. And, we couldn't give her bereavement leave, and that, to me, that doesn't sit right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's forward thinking, something I think that's absolutely worth looking at, and I appreciate that you're planning ahead for that.
Right.
And actually, Ms. Lashamillan, would you scroll down to that chart that I think is on page 210, just because I think this sort of demonstrates that chart there. I think this demonstrates just how some of those things you were talking about, Mr. Varda, the transactions completed, residents, non-residents, I mean, that's what, 130,000 transactions processed?
So,
and yeah.
Yeah, Andrew worked that chart up. Do you want to talk about it a little bit, Andrew?
It was impressive.
Yeah, so these transactions, they cover anything from, a pass visit, a cancellation request. It's not just activity registrations or facility rentals, things like that. It's all encompassing. But that said, it's definitely a lot that our admin staff does, for sure. These are all pulled directly from our RecTrack software, yeah. So we're trying to use that more for a lot of our performance measures now.
Well, that's appreciated because I think that really demonstrates all the work that's happening, and also the activity registration methods was interesting to see how many people use web versus. There's actually a larger number registering through staff than I would have expected there. Not as many are registering for the web. That's a pretty good proportion.
Yeah, and a lot of that is our summer camp registrations. We
Okay.
don't have that online just because of the sheer number of additional paperwork required. So if we took summer camp registrations out of that, I imagine there would be a lot more web registrations in comparison to the staff registrations.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I know that a lot of support, at least for the past couple of years, came through your ARPA dollars, or the ARPA dollars that were associated with this budget. Wondering if you have heard or are tracking any trends around specific types of programming that maybe you may not be able to fulfill that gap now moving into not having those ARPA dollars. So I want to make sure we're forward thinking and thinking about what is the community, really asking for that we may need to start thinking and projecting for.
Yeah, one of the main programs that we held that was funded through ARPA was the Learn to Earn program. And I think we're covered for the next 2 years, right? We're covered with ARPA money for the next 2 years, so we'll be able to keep that program open. We'll have to have this discussion next year, though, to see how we're going to fund it. Outside of that, I don't know that we had any other programs funded through ARPA. I don't think we did, yeah.
It's just it's the
Primarily,
infrastructure.
it was the
improvements.
infrastructure, a lot of projects, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Lot of, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And just to touch base on this chart again, we're moving, if council likes this, we're moving a little bit away from our traditional performance measures. We're trying to give you accurate information from our database and showing it in a different way that helps tell the story at a glance than searching through a chart and this number and that year and everything else. We hope you like this, because if you do, you'll see more of it as we move forward.
I did. I noticed that very specifically, the charts that under the performance measures. I thought that I did feel like it told the story a lot better.
Good.
So I, for myself, did appreciate that.
Good.
Yeah, I think I also like the charts, and I think some of the questions that I sent in advance asking about sort of demographic data and what other things that you had in your summary, I think a lot of those could actually go into some charts, which will help you tell the story in the future.
Right.
Okay. There's nothing else, so we move on to arts. I believe that's the next section.
Nicole DeWald will come up.
Good evening.
Oh,
Would you like me to dive right into it?
yeah.
Okay. Well, like our colleagues throughout Greenbelt Recreation, the arts program is deeply committed to providing programs that support social connections, skills sharing, personal development, and well-being at all ages. Our team members are critical to everything we do, so I really have to, at a minimum, give a shout out to our outstanding coordinators, Chris Cherry in Performing Arts and Amanda Larson in Visual Arts. We also have wonderful part-time staff working year-round to plan additional programs, manage the studios, support events, help mount staged productions, and more. We are providing 24/7 studio space for 8 artists in residence at the community center. We employ 53 teaching artists, and we provide business opportunities for 78 local artisans through our annual art and craft fair. And all of this talent is brought together to serve the greater Greenbelt community through a rich variety of arts experiences. About 2,800 people are expected to participate in our classes this year, and about 350 youth will have participated in arts camps. About 3,000 people will have attended 21 musical theater and dance performances, all original shows. Thousands more will have participated in the special events produced by our team, including, among others, the Wild Rumpus, the Tree Lighting, Sparkle Mart, and our Artful Afternoons, which have expanded to 2 per month this year. The arts team is also proud to present art exhibitions and support public art initiatives that enrich our shared physical and social environment. We're very grateful to all our inspiring participants and to council and the city manager for providing a stable, supportive environment in which the city's arts programs can thrive. And to hit on just a couple of quick highlights for the year, we have installed the sculpture at Motiva we're very excited about. And I know some of you guys are going to be able to join us for the dedication. Thank you. We're looking forward to that. We also partnered with the Hug Walk this fall and added some community puppetry and movement elements to that. We have expanded dance activities in interesting ways in our special events. We did a partnership activity with the Greenbelt Cinema around Call Me Dancer, a film that they were showing, the star of which came and taught a workshop with us. We've also done a workshop with Evolution Dance Studio, which is based in Beltway Plaza. And they joined us for an Artful Afternoon at Spring Hill Lake. And we have seniors in the dance program at Eleanor Roosevelt High School coming up to join us on June 1st at the Artful Afternoon. So they'll be presenting dance outdoors, which is wonderful. We just today finished installing a new show of contemporary documentary photos of Greenbelt by Danielle Towers in the first floor halls of the community center. And if anyone's available, she's going to be giving a talk tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock in the gallery. Folks are already really responding to her work. It's really exciting to see that in the public spaces at the community center. And coming up on May 4th, we have a giant art studio open house, a painting workshop, and a Chinese dance concert, all free. Everyone's welcome. And coming up a little further on the horizon, Camp Encore is returning to the Greenbelt Arts Center this year, and we have a rising cadre of young program leaders heading up some new projects with the participants for that camp. So just a couple of the things we're excited about. I'm happy to answer your questions.
That's as an impressive number of things, and that's just the arts part, right? That doesn't even count the rest of it. And I think you can scroll, if you scroll down there, the nice chart in this section, I think also shows that, and I appreciate that you show the ones that are the city-produced events, 13,000 plus participation, plus the city-supported events, which brings us up to 60,000. I think that's just a very impressive reach. Any questions for arts from any of my colleagues?
I appreciate the fact that you have expanded Artful Afternoons across into Greenbelt West. I know one of the things that I had heard that there could be some opportunity for additional marketing and outreach, and I don't know if there are plans to do that based in that budget to ensure that we can continue to have that program over there and try to get the word out a little bit more.
Thank you. Yeah, we've made some adjustments in the scheduling, which has already been helpful to us. And absolutely are always looking for those partnership opportunities to help improve our contacts with the community. We have just brought a new arts promotion specialist on board, and that will be one of the tasks that she's looking into. We're excited to have her help.
Thank you.
And this might be a good point to bring up one of the questions that Mayor Jordan sent, and I know some of these may take a little bit more digging into, but we were just talking about Greenbelt West, but he asked via email, what measures are in place to ensure equitable access to recreation department programs and services across the city? I think part of that is understanding the geographic distribution of the rec department patrons, and are there dedicated staff or resources specifically focused on serving residents in Greenbelt East? And if there are any targeted outreach efforts underway to promote recreation department programs to residents of apartments, condominiums, and homeowners associations in Greenbelt East. And I think that's not just art programs. I think that applies to all of it. But since we were just talking about programming in Greenbelt West, this seems like a good time to at least start to address that.
Okay, we don't have dedicated staff to any section of Greenbelt, but we try to be equitable as we can. Unfortunately, Greenbelt East, we have Schramm Hills Park with a very, very small clubhouse. When they built that in the 1990s, I wish it would have been a great opportunity to put a rec center in there. We didn't do that. So we're limited on what we can do. As a matter of fact, I think Nicole has a program over there this weekend. So she can talk a little bit about that. But, and the same in Greenbelt West, you know, Spring Hill Lake Recreation Center was great when it was just Spring Hill Lake at the time. And since Greenbelt West has grown so much, it's a very small rec center. So we try to make the best with what we have, the footprint that we have, but most of our stuff is located here on the central Greenbelt campus. You know, everything was built here. So in the future, you know, if we can build a rec center in Greenbelt East, that would be great. If we could expand the rec center at Spring Hill Lake Recreation Center, that would be great too. There is one piece of large property in Greenbelt East we don't own it, but we use it, and that's the open field off Mandan Road. It's owned by the Board of Ed, but, you know, it would be another ideal location for a rec center in Greenbelt East, too. We still get a lot of participants from Greenbelt East that come across the bridge, especially after school at Eleanor Roosevelt. They come across the bridge and come to the rec center here. You know, I see them walking down with book bags every day, just about. And the joggers, the track team runs from Roosevelt to the youth center, gets water, runs around the lake, stops. So there's a lot of people that come over from Greenbelt East that use the rec center over here. Unfortunately, we don't get that cross over from Greenbelt West, though. Just the road barrier is another issue.
It's not as nice a walk. It is walkable, as we've done with the Hug Walk in the fall, but it's a decent bike ride. It's not as nice a walk. Have we ever partnered with any of the homeowners associations that have community space to do programming there? Because I think, for example, Windsor, was it Windsor Green that just built sort of renovated their rec center? Have we ever done classes in one of the HOA facilities in partnership with them?
Thinking back over many years, we have nothing recently. We can certainly reach out and try again. If I remember correctly, it's also not a really big room.
It's bigger. It's bigger than
20
the
by
room
20
at
maybe?
at Spring Hill Lake. It's bigger than that side room at Spring Hill Lake Rec Center, I think.
Another, what I think would be an absolute game changer is if we could use the schools after hours as community centers, where if we could offer programs at Eleanor Roosevelt High School or at Spring Hill Lake or elementary school, that would be a game changer for us. Yeah.
Have we made any, and I think that was a question that you had sent in, and I actually have not read all the responses. Have we made any progress on an MOU? I think we were talking about Greenbelt Middle, but have we made any progress?
Yeah, the MOU was focused on Greenbelt Middle School fields. I did dig up the MOU that was in place pre-COVID, where we were making some headway. It was still a challenge. So what the city manager and myself talked about was we need to reset, talk with Public Works to see if they can take on the added responsibility of taking care of the ball fields, making sure we have enough staff to do that, and then possibly go after or re-engage with the Board of Education again. But ultimately, I think what needs to happen is the Board of Education and the county legislator needs to get together and make some bill or something where these schools turn into community centers after hours. Maybe, you know, Howard County has this model. Where they give the schools to the recreation department and they permit them out to the users and the stakeholders. In my mind, Park and Planning could get that power, and Park and Planning would give us the Greenbelt schools and let us permit them out to our local stakeholders. But, you know, that's been a wish of mine for a long time, and I don't know if that'll ever happen.
Something to add to a list as maybe a legislative priority.
Right.
Mr. Roberts.
Well, I have another issue, but on that issue, I think the reason they do that in Howard County is because Howard County has no municipality, so they're everything to everybody.
That's correct. And also, the Howard County Parks and Recreation Department put lights and turf on all their fields, and that was part of the deal.
The real reason I raised my hand is that I think the people in Greenbelt West need a lot more than just expanding the recreation center over there, because that rec center has always been too small for a 3,000 apartment complex, you know, and it's changed a lot. When it was first built, maybe there weren't as many kids there, you know, because it was mostly college kids living there. So maybe the amount of kids that live there are probably a lot more now. But, you know, they need a park, a real park, just like every other part of Greenbelt. When they built Greenbelt East, that's the first thing the people said, we got to have a park in Greenbelt East. And we used eminent domain to get part of that land to do it. And so, yeah, the city went through a lot to build Strom Hills. But I agree with you, it didn't get built really the way it should have. So Greenbelt East still needs their share of stuff. But the people in Greenbelt West, they have nothing. They have that one little thing, and that's it. They don't have a playing field for their kids. And right now, there's still land over there. And I don't want to hear this stuff about it's not in Greenbelt and stuff. Part of that land is in Greenbelt, and part of it's not. But that doesn't matter. You know, we got to do right by the people in Greenbelt West. That's all it is.
Well, and I would remind Mr. Roberts that there is, it's not a formal playing field, but actually the park in Greenbelt Station gets a lot of use by people playing soccer and throwing and frisbee and all sorts of things. But I'm mindful of the time.
It's not a substitute.
I'm mindful of the time, so I think, because if we're trying to get through, I think, I don't know if there's anything else to add to arts. I know we could probably talk about each department for a full hour, but I am trying to keep us on schedule because we've got more things to do.
I would just ask Nicole to touch a little bit on what's going to happen at Strom Hills Park this weekend.
Sure. Thank you. Strom Hills Park is the new home for... Okay. It's a specialized firing technique for ceramics based in the centuries-old Japanese tradition, and it's very dramatic. So not only is it a very special thing for our ceramic artists to get to do, but it's really fun to watch. And we have the rangers there to help ensure everybody's safety, but they get to see some real magic happen in ceramic arts and hopefully get excited about connecting with our programs through them.
I see a resident hand. Mr. Hartman, go ahead. And then I think after that, we'll move on to the Aquatic and Fitness Center.
Nicole, before Mr. Hartman begins, can you just tell us the time of the time the program begins at Strom Hills Park on Saturday? Is it Saturday?
I think it's at 1 o'clock, but I have to double check that and I'll get back to you to confirm. Oh, you can pull it up.
Sorry.
Hi, Michael.
It actually goes on for several hours, so you're pretty safe.
Michael Hartman, 2 Court Garden Way. I want to focus on the performing arts part of the program. Chris Cherry and Stefan Broad do a wonderful job. They're gems. But a couple of things I have a suggestion for. One, they're always sold out. And I asked some of the staff why they couldn't put some more chairs in the auditorium. And they said, we put every chair we have in the auditorium, in the gym. So I would love for you, if you find some money, to buy some more chairs so we can have larger audiences that are well-deserved. Also, I'm wondering if it's possible the acoustics in the gym are atrocious. And when the kids are performing, especially the younger ones, it's very difficult to hear them, even in the front. I'm wondering if you could explore the feasibility or the desirability of some area microphones that would hang from the ceiling and pick up some of the performances. That would help a lot in having the younger kids especially be heard what they're doing. In addition to the performing arts, which are absolutely wonderful, the art program, the classes and the practices for the artists, that whole recreation program is just, it's so broad and so diverse that I think anybody can find something that they really like to do, and I appreciate that very much. The creativity that your staff has in presenting options for people. And lastly, about Spring Hill Lake Recreation Center, I would like to associate myself with Council Member Roberts' comments about increasing attention to it. I appreciate the extra focus on Spring Hill Lake Recreation Center, and I also appreciate not only focus, but actual actions that are being taken to improve the experience of people living in that area. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Move on to aquatics.
Due to time constraints, I will keep this brief. No, hi, I'm Steven. I'm the supervisor of the Greenbelt Aquatic and Fitness Center. As many of you know, currently we're going under a dramatic renovation of our indoor pool. We hope to move forward and have that finished as soon as possible. The outdoor pool is progressing faster than we think. We hope to have our health department inspection scheduled the week of the 5th and open as early as the 12th. But as my staff have been telling us, the drop dead date we will open is Memorial Day weekend. So
Yeah.
just to keep that straight.
Yeah. Well, and we've had some days that have been warm enough that you could go swimming.
No.
No?
No. Even with the 80-degree temperature, the water temperature, because of ground temperature, it's going to be cold. Moving forward, our programs for the summer, we have worked with all the different groups to try and get everyone in. Our camps will be able to get their times in for swimming. However, lessons will be affected. Our own programs for lessons will be on a modified basis. We will get them in the weekday and the weekend. We've cut back on one of the sessions for weekday lessons. Swim team, we've worked out a schedule. We're going to see how that works out. They'll continue to do what they do in the mornings, and we've added, we had to split it up because of our own program schedule and put them in the afternoon for 2 days a week once school is out. They were able to get at least one home meet. It is scheduled for the 21st of June. That's Sunday. Who's got a calendar to fact check that? So they will have their one meet, so that'll be the one day this summer where the outdoor pool will actually open at 1 o'clock so that we can get their meet in. But other than that, they should be able to move forward with their season. Staff, we've tried to keep everyone working with this shutdown going on. The staff did most of the cleaning of the outdoor pool in regards to getting the muck. I apologize for the smell of the leaves, but by Friday it should be gone. So Jason, our contractor, is currently finishing up his drain and clean, so we should hope to be filling by Friday, and then we'll go from there.
It's good. I know it's been a challenge to work out all of those schedules with all of the people who like using the indoor pool, but we'll have a wonderful rebuilt pool deck that hopefully will not need attention for a very long time after we finish this project in September.
So, and in regards to memberships and everything, we've worked out a plan. Once we have the date for the opening of the outdoor pool, we can start our pause program that we've put in place. Members were sent out an email. I actually sent out, I wrote this down because I didn't believe it, 1,018 emails to pass holders. 43 bounced back. One of them was silky, but we got that straightened out. We got that straightened out. Of the 43, a lot of them were either incorrect or the domain was no longer accepting emails. So everyone's been notified. The PIO has done a great job of posting all our information that we need for the public to know what's going on. And like I said, once we have that date of an opening, we can start going back and crediting people and putting the pause program into effect. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
A question, this might be from Ms. Gaiman, on the aquatic and fitness revenue sources from FY 2024, where the percentage of expenditures covered by fees was 85%, and then that seemed significantly higher than most years. It's on page 215.
Thank you.
At the very bottom. Can you give a little bit of explanation on why that's so different between in 2024 versus all the other years that we're showing here and then the estimated budget? for 2025?
I think that's a typo.
Yeah.
Oh.
It looks like there's missing, it looks like it's missing the general city revenues in there.
That's what it is, yeah.
It's like-
So it's not adding the general, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll make sure that gets in.
Okay.
And once that goes in, I'm sure it'll be level around the 37, 38.
Okay. And then my second question is there any risk at all to the changes in the grant from Maryland National Capital Park and Planning? Because it seems like we get about 100,000 of that per year. Any changes that?
So that's a,
Okay.
that's money we get about 260,000 total for
Okay.
recreation, shared between the pool, community center, recreation centers, and therapeutic recreation. That number is determined, again, by legislators. That number has not been raised in about 4 or 5 years. I think it's time for council to start talking to the county people about this. And, Bowie gets that money, Laurel gets that money, and other municipalities get that money for double taxation for the most part. So power and numbers, but that number needs to come up. It's extremely low.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we should add that also to our legislative priorities.
Yes.
Just question for you, were you asking that question, is it on, were you asking that question based on what's happening with the Trump administration, whether or not that's been
Yeah.
targeted?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that's where you're going, and so far, we've not heard
Okay.
any thing about adjustments. thus
Okay.
far, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's probably.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, so that's the money that we get from the county to sort of offset the recreation programs that, because we provide recreation
Right.
programs, meaning our residents theoretically don't use county recreation facilities.
They can. Yeah, they would be a resident using a county recreation facility, but since we have our own department, they give us money for what they call the double taxation that our
Right,
residents
and they give us,
pay.
could you just tell me again how much they give us?
The total is $260,000.
But and when was the last time it increased?
I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago. I have to look into that, but it's 4 or 5.
And do you know if they have a formula for calculating that?
I don't know.
Okay,
I
okay,
do not
no worries,
know.
I can
Yeah.
find that out. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Davis.
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East. Every year, usually you give us a survey that you've taken with the Aquatic Fitness Center. Are you going to have that survey this year?
I'll do it again. It should be scheduled again for around January. So,
So did you do one?
no,
for-
we did this, no, the survey, sorry. Yeah, the survey.
So I believe normally this is something we do every other year, and I think we mistakenly did it back-to-back years, the past 2 fiscal years, which probably gave the impression that we did it annually, but it's more of a biannually thing. So
Okay.
we'll have it in next year's budget cycle.
I didn't know that it was every other year because it's been sporadic. Some years there's a survey, and then there's 2 years no survey,
We're-
and then there's 2 years there is a survey.
We're trying to bring some more uniformity
Okay.
to those surveys, as well as our fee increases and things of that nature.
Now, I don't know if anyone has brought up, I apologize for coming in late, but obviously the bar graphs have not been finished yet as far as showing the graphs. There's numbers, but no graph.
That's how it comes across on the computer, but they're there. When you look at it, they're in there, but I don't
They're
know.
not printed.
When you print it, it doesn't come across.
Okay.
But it's there, yeah. I'm not
I mean,
sure
I
why.
appreciate bar graphs, circle graphs, pie graphs, whatever, because it makes things very visual. But it does eliminate a lot of the information that we've had in the past. You know, we had a whole page and you basically put it into one bar graph. It doesn't quite, and that goes throughout the whole recreation thing. So I know that this is a change, but it does leave out a lot of information. And I just want to ask, and I apologize if you did talk about the park rangers already. How many park rangers do we have?
We currently have 5.
5.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, and I hope a lot of other people, I really appreciate them. They are doing a marvelous job. They not only do what they're supposed to do, but they do more. And they catch things sometimes that we probably just don't even notice, but they're there, they're in the parks and so on. And they have been helping a lot of people. I like the new interpretive programs that you have, and I know that you're going to hopefully do more. And that will utilize a lot of their talents and skills, and I think it would make it very worthwhile for them to continue their employment with us because we're going to give them a lot more to do that is substantive. Thank you.
Anything else for aquatics and fitness, or shall we move on to the museum? Sorry, we're going through things quickly, but thank you for coming.
Thanks, Steve.
It's on. Hello, thanks everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be here and share, give some updates on the Greenbelt Museum. We have a lot going on, and just one of the things I wanted to start with was just to clarify the relationship between the City of Greenbelt and Friends of the Greenbelt Museum. At a recent council meeting, this came up, and I just wanted to be sure that it's clear. The museum is owned and operated by the City of Greenbelt. The Friends of the Greenbelt Museum they serve in an advisory capacity, and they also serve in a fundraising capacity. Funds raised by FOGM go to support museum programs and activities, and they also support an endowment fund that is used to sort of be there in case it's needed. There are actually 2 funds. One is an NEH Challenge Grant Fund, and monies from that fund are actually transferred to the city annually to cover about, I think, 90% or so of the cost of the education and volunteer coordinator. That was a restricted grant, so it has to be used that way. But so this has not always been the case. So just so that I know there's some misunderstanding, and sometimes we're compared to the situation with the Friends of the Greenbelt Theater, but it's quite different because the city owns and operates that building at 10A and 10B, the buildings, and I'm a city employee as well as my colleague Sheila now is as well. So it was really back in fiscal year 2021, following a process that FOGM undertook with the city to sort of restructure the relationship between the 2 entities and clarify some of the roles. That really hadn't been done since the original MOU was signed in 1987. So it really did need to be updated. So are there any questions about that before I go on? No? Okay. So turning to 10A, I wanted to give you an update about the Museum Visitor and Education Project. We have in hand, we have approval from GHI for the addition, which was somewhat hard won. 4 different meetings that we went to, and there was a redo of some of the windows on the addition, but we have that in hand. So the next step is bringing on a project manager and also obtaining county permits so that we can move forward, well, and completing the fundraising that's necessary. We need to have the funds to complete the project. So the cost of the physical project, which is the renovation of 10A and putting on the addition, is $550,000. So thus far, we've raised $330,000 of that, primarily through grants from places like Maryland Historical Trust, the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. We got grants through a community tax credit initiative and a municipal state bond. That was the most recent. That happened last year, I believe. That's $100,000. Of that money that's been raised, about $44,000 of it was raised through small gifts from individuals. So FOGM has done some of that fundraising in that way rather than applying for grants. And a couple of years ago, FOGM did enlist the help of a fundraising consultant who helped design the capital campaign. That was really essential to help FOGM sort of and museum staff sort of really imagine what the project could be, and come up with some really good fundraising materials like these rack cards. I'll just pass these around. I know you guys have probably seen these before, but many of the questions that come up about the project are answered on here. So let's see, where was I? So that fundraising consultant was brought on to help design the campaign, as I said, but not to actually do the fundraising. That's really more the job of the Friends of the Greenbelt Museum. Although as a city building, at some point, you know, I would humbly request that at some point there be money potentially as a item in the capital projects budget of the city to help complete the funding for this project if the fundraising is not fully successful, though we hope that it will be. Most recently, along with city staff and the development team, we applied to be part of a federal earmark. I don't know what our chances are, but we did have a great visit from one of Senator Van Hollen's assistants. He came to the site and had lots of great questions, so we're hopeful for that. The last thing I wanted to say, we just have a ways further to go, but you know, it's a really worthwhile project. I think it has the potential to bring a good amount of heritage tourism to the city, and it would really help to consolidate all of the museum's functions in one place so that we can offer programming on site where the museum house is. And the house is really our most important teaching tool, so that's partly why that's so important.
And have there been, I think this was one of the questions that Mayor Jordanson, and any particular challenges with the incorporating the museum into the rec department? I think it's been a little while now. I think it was.
Yeah, I skipped that part, didn't I? But yeah, that happened in fiscal year 24. Was it the first year? 24, but.
So it's been a couple years now.
A couple years, but it had been something that had been discussed prior to that. So I think it's such a better fit for the museum. We get support from folks in the rec department as well as the park rangers. The exhibition opening and artist talk tomorrow night is a collaboration between Recreation Arts and the museum, and it's really been incredibly helpful to have a few more people, have a few more hands when we try to do some of these big events where we have 75 to 80 people coming. To try to do those with just myself and Sheila and a couple volunteers has been a real challenge. So it's been incredibly helpful to be a part of the rec department.
Any questions for the museum? Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering, are there any fees associated with like maintaining the archives, and I don't know if you have to digitize records and things like that, and where does that fall in your budget?
Yes, okay. And that's a great question. It's the costs mainly, well, the cost, right now I have a volunteer who's coming in 1 day a week and scanning. So, I mean, that is incredibly valuable. So I have had to order more archival boxes and folders for the things that he's processing. But that really is sort of, at least how we envision it, is one of the next phases in this project of expanding the museum, is to get more of that online. So the real costs are the labor for scanning, and then potentially reworking the website. I do the website right now, but we would need to partner with another entity. There are some that are free to get your digitized collection online so that it's searchable and usable. And that's really the next step. Yeah. So get the physical building improved, and that will have an archives room in it. And then that next step is sort of expanding what we can offer online as part of the digital experience.
And I think it's noted that there is a cost also for some fine artifact storage. That looks, I think that's
yes,
line 55.
Yes,
that's a 24,200 in the
that's
proposed
right,
budget.
That's
so
right.
there is some cost for that sort of specialized air
it's fine art
controlled.
Yes, it's fine art storage. None of the museums that I have worked with or been associated with are ever able to store all of their things on site, unfortunately. But they are highly protected there. It's monitored and temperature and humidity controlled, which is really important for things like furniture, excuse me, and textiles that we have in the collection. Not all of it is in the highest level of fine art storage. Some is like one rung down from that. And some of those things, I think there is the potential to re-examine and see if they require that kind of specialized storage. But that's something that, we'll hopefully tackle in the future.
Ms. Pompey?
Yeah. Sorry, still getting used to the new mics. As far as the remaining $220,000 to be raised, do you know if the Friends of the Museum, do they have a specific campaign as a form of fundraiser? That just seems like such an attainable number to me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like wondering, like, are they launching any new campaign this year? And I mean, that just, because I mean, I just feel like that's a very attainable number.
Doable, yeah. So it's the whole capital campaign is the 550, and so all of the grants that I discussed, except for the $100,000 earmark, and I think $6,000 from two different city budgets 5 or so years ago, all of those were grants that were submitted under FOGM. So that's all part of the capital campaign. I feel like for years I've sat here and said that the public phase of the campaign is starting very soon, and we still hope to do that. FOGM is in the midst of figuring out how best to go about that. So that would be typically you want to have 60% or so of your total in hand before, 60 to 75% of your total in hand before moving to a capital campaign, public phase of the campaign, sorry. So we're about there, yeah. So yes, it's something that is being worked on as we speak.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Orleans. I think and after Mr. Orleans' questions, if there aren't any further questions, we'll move on to therapeutic recreation.
Orleans, Greenbelt. I'm one who regret that that house and now those two houses are being used for the Greenbelt Museum, but that's the way it is, so be it. I have, as I have in the past, want to applaud Ms. Young for the curation of the museum. It's a lot of good programming that goes on there, most of which I can't attend. I know I've inquired in the past if some of the programs that take place upstairs in the community center could be recorded so that they could be looked at afterwards, and I was told at one point that was problematic. I don't know why, but it would be great to be able to go back and view all of those programs that took place upstairs. I appreciate the model since the city recreation department has essentially taken over as within its department the museum. I might think that the city council should further explore a similar program for the theater itself, and the director of the theater could be a recreation department program. Presumably, Mr. Young is free of interference in the curation of museum activities, and similarly, the director of the theater should be presumably not interfered with the direction of the programming of the theater. But I think it makes a lot of sense, and whatever has been worked out with the Friends of the Greenbelt Museum could similarly be worked out with the Friends of the Theater. I have a specific question. Early this month, on a Saturday in the Greenbelt Library, there were two activities, both with the University of Maryland, telling our Greenbelt stories was in the morning, our co-ops write for the U.S. Now in the afternoon, both by the College of Information Center and Archival Activities. Is that something that the city or the museum or you yourself personally had any role in? Because these were not recorded either. And I'm wondering if you have further information about the information that was conveyed in those two activities.
I don't have that information on hand. Those are projects that were developed between the county library, probably the branch manager there, and directly with the University of Maryland. So it doesn't, I mean, I get notices of them sometimes, sometimes I don't, but we don't have direct involvement in that. I do know who the instructor is who's leading those classes, and can ask if we can get a hold of the information that was shared there. I'd be happy to do that.
Later,
yeah.
Thank you.
We have done partnerships with the University of Maryland over the years, with student groups and also with individuals, but that's something that they arranged between themselves, and they didn't invite us to participate that time. Sometimes we have participated with them.
Thank you. Lastly, and I will speak to you later about getting that information. Lastly, I would wish somehow that the museum could play a greater role in the monitoring of what takes place in the Tugwell room in the Greenbelt Library. I've heard Ms. Young and others suggest in the past that the city has no room to assume responsibility for the Tugwell contents, although in the past it has come up that the city was requesting of the library system that if they were to abandon, which they actually did in some part, their holdings, that the city would have essentially a right of first refusal to take it over. I think it would be useful to have the museum staff and recreation department staff and others in the city participate in a long-term visioning project for all the contents of the Tugwell room so that any of them would not be discarded in the future.
We do have an MOU standing with, it's a letter of understanding with the library system that the city would get for right of first refusal if they do indeed decide to deaccession that collection. So, and I also just wanted to point out many of our programs that are recorded, the majority of them are, and they're available on our YouTube channel. The museum has a YouTube channel, so anyone can check there.
Thank you. Yeah. Ms. Niesel.
Question, which I apologize, this is probably better served in email, but since we're here. The first is, these are beautiful. I think the green really, really stands out. I've never seen them anywhere. So where are you putting them? That could be definitely part of your campaign. I'll just leave that there. And then the second is, I have been just kind of consistently stunned by how many people have studied Greenbelt and the Greenbelt Museum. And I wonder if you, in your director capacity, could somehow curate in a way that was manageable for your time, or have a page on the website or something that people who are seeking information for their postgraduate degrees could perhaps pay a fee to get information from you specifically about the museum. I think that it could go a long way in kind of the historical tourism that we could use the museum for in a revenue building way.
Yes, I appreciate that suggestion very much. First of all, the cards are not, we've not really sort of flooded the zone with them because that was part of the public phase of the campaign. So get ready, they will be coming. We have a huge box of them. So we will be putting those around everywhere. So thank you for that. And as far as resources, we do have a resources section on the website, along with a note about how people can make an appointment to come in and do research. I talk to people all over the world, essentially, who want specific information about Greenbelt. And I don't charge for that right now. That is certainly something that we could look into, and many institutions do. Right now, it would be a fulfillment issue. It's staffing. I mean, I'm, doing the things I'm doing, as well as the Reparations Commission. And right now, there's no one else that we could bring on to fulfill the research role for if it was a fee for service kind of situation. But it's definitely something that we would be open to. We really do have inquiries coming from all over. So it could be a revenue stream.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
So I think next up is therapeutic recreation. I think any particular
Yeah,
highlights to
good
share?
evening. I'll present on therapeutic recreation. I have a phenomenal colleague, Priya Gardner-Lemieux, who is kind of a mini department of one. She does a phenomenal job. The therapeutic recreation budget covers our active aging senior programs and our inclusion programs. And I'm happy to announce that we won an award from the Maryland Municipal League for what I feel is our outstanding inclusion program here in Greenbelt. I think it's something we can all be really proud of. Our programs are truly inclusive, and we're always working to make them more so. As you mentioned, Pro Tem Weaver, we had a separate area at the egg hunt, and we had some really positive feedback on how that really helped some of our participants. So we're always looking for ways to improve.
Any particular questions in this area? Oh, and yeah, we touched on it a little bit. Yeah, Ms. Niesel?
This isn't a question. I just want to say thank you so much. Your inclusion counselors do such an amazing job, and I appreciate, as a parent of passably neurotypical child, that she came home from her spring break camp experience talking all about autism and the different ways that people with autism were being supported in the camp. And so the way that your counselors speak to all of the children, it just means so much. It's such a learning experience for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll pass that feedback on to Priya. She may be watching, I'm not sure. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Community Center.
Hello, my name is Trevin Green. I am the new Community Center Supervisor. I want to thank you all for having me. It's been a wonderful time working for the city, especially this recreation department. They've been awesome mentors to me. I started out in the Aquatic and Fitness Center as the Aquatic and Fitness Coordinator. As of January, I took on the role as the new Community Center Supervisor. So I am getting acclimated. I wish I could speak to a lot like my colleagues have, but the community center is growing in a way where we're trying to get things up past when pandemic times. We have extended our Saturday hours to accommodate our community. We're also looking at ways to market our meeting rooms in a different way. I've met with PIO to do some look at doing some videos and things like that to really expand our footprint on our meeting rooms to the community and abroad. We house a lot of the programs that are going on. My job is to particularly the functionality of the building to make sure everything is operating in a way so all these programs can take place for the seniors, for the youth, the many different programs we offer, the concerts and things like that. So once again, I'm still getting acclimated to this, so I'm open for questions.
Can you scroll down to the chart there? Because I think this also sort of demonstrates a way, that green is the free space that is given to our recognition groups, which is a very large part of the programming, and then the sort of the light tan is the recreation activities, and then just the little segment there is the paid rentals. So you can see we're doing a lot in our community center, and the room reservations are only increasing. I mean, I think we can see the effect of the pandemic there, but it's amazing how much we can fit in that community center. But I know that we are sort of, if we're not at capacity in terms of rental spaces, I know certain types of rooms are always in high demand. So I know that's an area that's been a challenge at times. I don't know if Mr. Vardo, or if you want to speak to that, or if you have it, or Mr. Phelan, if you have any thoughts about, besides trying to get you some new buildings, which, maybe eventually there might be some space in the Armory as one possibility, but that's going to be a few years down the road. We've also talked about the Dora Kennedy School, if we can get that from the county and convert that, but these are all long-term things, so.
Yeah, the community center certainly has a lot of activity. I don't think we're at capacity yet. As we have more free space groups, we're kind of teetering towards that. We do have some measures in place with our free usage policy. Groups are limited to no more than 2 free space rentals per week. The gym, they can only get 4 times a year. So we have some protections in place to ensure that we, don't have any paid rental space available. But as far as approaching capacity, I don't think we're quite there yet.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
But again, as you can see in this chart, like our free space groups are increasing steadily.
Which is amazing.
And
which
we
is
are
great.
happy to accommodate them. If that's, I mean, it's a community center. So, I mean, if that's the model we want to take, that's perfectly fine, and we're happy to accommodate them. It just ultimately might impact our ability to generate revenue for the
Or
space.
do other programs.
But I will say,
yeah.
Trevin's brought a lot of energy to the position, and he is very motivated to make more money in that building for the city. So as he mentioned, he's met with PIO to kind of promote the space a little better. He's trying to get more kitchen rentals in the space because
that'd be great,
historically
yeah.
we haven't had too many. We have 2 new kitchen rentals in the pipeline. We're hoping they come through. So we're excited about that. But yeah, again, capacity, we're not too concerned at this point.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Little concerned about the continued increase in free space, but it's not at a concerning level at this point.
Yeah, Ms. Pompey.
I just wanted to comment on the fact that I'm in the community center a lot, and it always seems full. Like, there are always people there, and I'm always just so impressed by, like, the condition of our community center. It's so clean, it's so welcoming, it's so well maintained. I mean, it's an older building, but it doesn't feel like it's older, you know? Like, it just feels like a vibrant, vital space, and I just think you guys are doing a great job of, like, making the community center a place where people want to be and feel comfortable. You know, that's really important. So
Yeah, I would like to give credit to the Public Works Department as well, that partners with us with
Yeah.
that, making sure that's maintained, that's running
every
well.
time I'm in there, I love it. So, and I just love seeing all the groups of people in there, like the knitting groups and, you know, people playing games, the senior luncheons that happen there. Like, it just fulfills so many vital needs in this community and functions as a third space for people who really need it. And
Yes.
I just appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the community center? Okay, then I think we're off. Thank you so much, and welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Congratulations on your promotion.
Rec centers, is that? You want to come up, Latoya?
Yeah, I don't know who is.
Latoya and Andrew will tag team on this, but I think Latoya is here at the table for the remainder of the meeting, so
Okay,
she's
sounds
responsible for
good.
the rest of the budgets.
So the other rec centers, any particular questions or anything you want to highlight in particular?
From a facility perspective, I just want to highlight, you know, these accomplishments are listed, but I'd like to take the moment to highlight them. We had a complete resurfacing of the Spring Hill Lake Recreation Center gymnasium. I know there was a lot of folks clamoring for that. It was on our schedule for a complete resurfacing, and we were able to complete that. The gym was closed, unfortunately, for about 8 weeks for a full resurfacing. So the floor is a lot shinier than it was before. It wasn't that it was dirty, it was just that it was due for a resurfacing. In addition, we have a lot of new furniture in the game room area. We got new furniture for the offices there, and we were able to do that with funds from Motiva. And we still have approximately just north of $20,000. And with that, we're looking at possibly replacing all of the tile on the floors in the game room, the front lobby, the former computer lab, as well as adding a new front desk to replace the old one that's currently there. Something is a little bit smaller that's not quite as cumbersome as the existing one. Obviously, we finished the Spring Hill Lake playground. I'm a bit biased, but I think it's the best playground in the entire city. And just recently, we installed some solar lights that add to that space as well, the basketball court in particular.
And I should mention that the folks who play volleyball over on the volleyball court would love to have some of those solar lights too, because I have one particular resident who keeps asking me about
Someone
them.
sitting across from me has mentioned that before. I won't mention him by name, but yeah, that's been discussed and certainly something we'd be willing to look at, just because it was very simple install with the solar. I think that there's some potential there for that space. Finally, the Spring Hill Lake Rec Center, we modified those hours due to the popularity of the preschool story time. We're now opening up at 10 a.m. on weekdays. We don't have any programs in place right now, but the plans are to capitalize on the popularity of that preschool story time and offer some more preschool-oriented programs for the youth over there.
I do enjoy it when I make it over for that preschool story time. I love watching those kids listen to the stories and the little activities and stuff. It's it's a very enjoyable thing to pop into on a Friday. Always puts a smile on my face.
Anything to add?
You're doing a great job.
Any questions? Yeah. Go ahead.
I know that you guys did, or well, in Public Works, did quite a bit of building maintenance. So I understand the number that's on line 46, but can you talk about the remaining building maintenance that you're projecting for FY 2026? So it's about 100,000. What does that include? That's on page, 229.
Yeah, that's, I'd have to talk to Public Works about that. That's a account that they manage, so I'm not sure what their plans are. The project Andrew was talking about isn't capital money, that's the Motiva money we have for the 50,000 we got for Greenbelt West rec. So I'm not sure, but we can look into that and get that answer back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Davis.
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East. First of all, I want to thank Council Member Weaver and McKinney for asking some very good questions. I got a lot more information. Sometimes I'm looking at the small details and you're looking at the bigger picture, and I think that that works out very well, that we all can kind of share. I just wish more council members would turn questions in. I know they have questions, but they're not quite doing that yet. Also, you mentioned Greenbelt East, and I suggested in my questions, because you do have a report for Greenbelt West of the programs that you have there. And granted, Greenbelt East doesn't have the big center that you can do a lot of things, but they do have an area that you can do things in. Either it's outdoors, and we do have the Fall Fest there, or Schramm Fest, whatever you want to say. We do have some other areas that could have some programs. So even if it's a small report on what you're doing, I think the fact that you do a report like for Greenbelt West, it might encourage you all to think about programs and to think about ways of using it. Greenbelt East sometimes gets a little short shrift sometimes about programs, so I just want to put the plug in to do a report. The other thing that I want to mention is, and I understand it's a very tight budget year, but I did make a comment about the fact that there's very little money in the Recreation Department for training and membership dues. There is a pool that you can use to send some people to conferences, but I hope that is not a long-standing trend, because we have always prized ourselves on sending our staff to get the appropriate training that they need or to go to conferences, because that's where you get your new ideas and where you get to network and bring back ideas. Council does that, and I would hope that our staff has a chance to do that as well. Like I said, I understand this year it's kind of, this is where you cut your funds, but I hope it doesn't continue.
I couldn't agree more with you, and I think this year's an aberration when it comes to training, just the tight budget times. We do have a little bit of money we kept into the admin, and we will offer some training to some of our newer employees. Trevin's going to be going to supervisor school this year at Ogleby, West Virginia, which is taught by NC State University, and we have money in the budget to send him again next year. And we'll look into sending some of our younger staff to the MRPA, Maryland Recreation Park Association conference, because I agree they get a lot of great ideas from these conferences. They meet new people, they develop their with colleagues from other places, and those relationships last their entire tenure with the city. So it's really important. Couldn't agree more.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. And to Greenbelt East, we're building a new soccer field, multi-use field over there. So there's going to be a lot more activity associated with that, as well as at the Schramm Hills community room, we call it. We're just as of today in the process of kind of moving in our park rangers in a little office there to have a pseudo headquarters. So that later down the line might present some opportunities for possibly some programming that the park rangers do in that space.
And I know there's a few, I know the poetry, the monthly poetry is there either outside or in the park. I think there's a few of the recognition groups that like to use that space as well.
Yeah, we have a Girl Scout group in addition to the Cheers Poetry group as well.
Yeah. Was it something to this, Ms. Gaiman, you wanted to address?
I think she's going to talk about this budget. I want to go back to the past one, just to answer your question if I can. So that $100,000, $100,900 is for Public Works, and it's a summarized number. It's for electrical, 25,000, HVAC, 15,000, a number of different items that Public Works Department will be responsible for addressing. So I can send this list out to you. What you see is a summarized number, but I have the details here. Okay, so it's a number of different things.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was more of a question and an idea. I know that there's lots of funding available out there for specifically women and girls in sports. And I know that flag football has become a pretty big thing. And I don't know if there's been interest that has come from the community, because there may be a way to sort of leverage building that type of sport up, as well as getting additional funding coming in.
I think that's a great idea, and probably a program or if there's a grant out there we'd like to share with our Boys and Girls Club. I know they have a flag football program, and I believe it's co-ed, but possibly they could find enough girls that would want to play exclusively that way. So we'll be meeting with the Boys and Girls Club in a couple weeks, and I think that'd be good to present to them.
Anything else, or on to recreation centers and special programs? Sorry, recreation programs. We already did recreation centers. Recreation programs and special events. And, yeah, two more. I didn't quite get us out in an hour, but maybe in an hour and a half. Any particular highlights for recreation programs, or any particular questions about recreation programs?
No, I'll just say that the rec programs budget includes all our licensed programs, which includes our preschool and our summer camps, as well as our summer program, which is a majority, and our teen and adult programs, including some of the Learn to Earn program.
Well, and I think that seems like it's always impressive to see those young people at the Learn to Earn graduation, and it'll be interesting to see how, maybe follow up with them in a couple of years, see how things are going. And then I know the camps are amazingly popular, and that's I know a huge part of that. And I think I have heard from the parents that I know who do those how much they enjoy those camp programs. So even though I don't have any kids to send to them myself. Yes, Ms. Pompey.
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment you on the Learn to Earn program, because as a parent of teenagers, I know how hard it is to keep them engaged and to keep them doing something like consistently that's not like playing video games. So congratulations to you guys for how successful that program has been. Like, I'm just incredibly impressed with the work you're doing and with the kids when they come out of that program. I mean, it's like they're all my teenagers. I feel so proud of them. So, and also I'm just so glad that we continue to have the summer camp and spring camp programs that we have, because they're some of the most affordable in this region. And it's so important to have affordable options for parents. And these aren't just affordable camps, they're like good camps. I mean, there are other camps that are affordable that kids don't really enjoy going to, or that they spend all day watching movies. And these are like good camps where the kids have fun and they learn and they build connections. So I just think that's really great work that you're doing, and it's a huge service that you provide to this, not just even to Greenbelt, but to other families across this region, because even though non-residents do have to pay a little bit more, it's still incredibly affordable what folks pay for these camps. So it's just, I'm very impressed with what you're able to do.
Right. We realize that people pass many different camps to come to our camp from out of town, I don't know what the percentage is, but we certainly need our non-residents so our camps fill up. So it's important to us that we have a quality camp that parents from other counties, other cities want to drive here and be part of our camp community. So that's good to know. And maybe LaToya can touch base a little bit on the summer program we offer at Spring Hill Lake Recreation Center as well.
Yes, so in addition to the camps on this side, we have a summer program at Spring Hill Lake that goes from 12 to 6. And so they usually start about a week after us because they also have a robust after-school program. So the staff that do the after-school program often need a little break to reset and get ready for summer. So they meet over there. They also go on field trips, go to the pool on Fridays, and sometimes we'll tie in cinema visits or have special guests over there. So that's been a program that we've been growing for, maybe like four years at this point. So another program we're really excited about.
How many kids are in that program?
So typically we cap it at about 35 to 40 kids.
And is it usually full?
Yes.
And I think that seems to be the case, that almost all of the camps are at capacity, it seems like, consistently.
Yes. Post-COVID, we're definitely getting back to that, and as well as starting to see a wait list. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
We don't.
Yeah.
We don't like turning kids away.
Yeah.
No, it is hard to have to turn kids away, but it's, we were talking about, I guess maybe during the year, the capacity of the community center or other spaces is not as much of an issue, but it sounds like in the summer, we're using every single space that we can.
Yes, yes.
Not to mention as well, we really need indoor space because our summers are getting hotter. Where
Yeah.
we're outside most of the morning, but come afternoon, we pretty much have, most days, or not most, but a lot of days we have to come inside because of the heat and humidity.
And I think that was described in one of the memos of the sort of having to make adjustments to the programming to make sure that, that you're not out in the extreme heat and the risks that come with that for overexertion and things like that, right?
Yeah, previously it was more towards like the end. So since we do 2-week sessions, maybe like that session 3, session 4, we started to see those higher temperatures. And so the beginning of the summer was mild and we were able to do a bit more, but now we're seeing it from day one.
Yeah.
So that's always fun.
Any other questions on this, or our last section here, special events, which we touched on a little bit, I think, talking about some of the park rangers and some of that, but I don't know if there's other things to...
Yep. So basically we manage all of the city and community events, and as mentioned before, a large focus for the next cycle will be hiring and training that special events team to kind of handle the load a little bit more for the special events.
And I think these are, we do have some amazing special events, and I also appreciate that that listed in here are not just the ones that are the city's doing, but also supporting of community events, because that is a large part of it. Things like the Labor Day Festival, which is a lot volunteer run, but still support from the city. You list the Blues Festival, Jazz Festival, Pride, Tour de Greenbelt, all sorts of other things, all of these other events, that it's amazing that we have the volunteers that are willing to step up in Greenbelt. That really increases our ability to do events, but it does require support from the city to make sure those are successful.
There's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes on with organizing, formalizing these events, liability, what they need at this special events, and communicating interdepartmentally. And one other thing we're beginning to do is figuring out what the in-kind service is actually costing the city. And over the next year, we'll be putting that number together. So when we come to budget time next year, we'll be able to show you exactly what the in-kind services, the equipment needed for these special events, which are important. What does it cost the city to do that? Yeah.
Well, and they're important. They're things that we want to support, but it is important to understand how much they are actually costing us,
right?
And account for that, because then you know whether you can accommodate requests for more events or not, and what is the number of big events that we can handle in the budget that we're giving you in a year.
Right, and the events don't go away once they start. They keep coming, and more keep coming. Yeah.
And this might be a good time. One of the other questions that Mayor Jordan sent was, I'm going to summarize a little bit, but the idea of outsourcing or subcontracting administrative functions, or people that might have specialized skills, specialized instruction, event management, personnel recruitment, human resources, direct partnerships with neighboring jurisdictions, for example, Berwyn Heights, or other innovative ideas to consider. I realize that is not a question we have time to talk about right now, but I don't know if you have any initial thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a work session. And some of it is philosophy. Is it a change? could be a change in philosophy, what we do over time, what we've done in the past. That's a question I need to drill down on more and get more information. And, I'm happy to answer Mayor Jordan's questions, but that one will take me a little bit of time.
And I think it's been helpful, the restructuring to have the special events coordinator, I think, has helped make it clear, like when people ask about things, oh, talk to Patrick Mullen, he's the one, that makes it, from me trying to help residents, it's easier. I know exactly who they should talk to.
Absolutely. Patrick is our expert, yes.
Yeah. And, Ms. Gaiman.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear you say that you would want to hear about the real cost of the events, because when we add in Public Works and all the other pieces to the projects for each one of these events, having that information in front of you, I think will be very, very helpful to know what the real costs are.
Right. And it's not that we don't want to support them, but we should know what the resources the city is expending on these activities that our residents love, but that do have a cost to them.
Absolutely. Glad to hear you say that. Great.
Ms. McKinney.
Things, I was just looking at the list of events. It's not necessarily a special event, but the cost related to the support for like the farmers market, is that, the rangers or the park rangers have to be there and the rec staff. That's pretty sizable,
There's some
right?
costs. There's some there's some costs with that. Public Works, mainly Public Works. Yeah.
So we should try to account for that somewhere and call that out.
We're going to do that. We're going to have that number next year and have it itemized for each special event so you can actually see it.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. Any final questions for the Rec Department, Mr. Salmarone or Ms. Gaiman? Anything that you want to wrap up the Rec Department budget discussion with?
Yeah, I just want to apologize for my failure to recognize the rest of the team that's here. As I mentioned, this budget couldn't come together without the support and hard work of Ms. Gaiman. Also joining us tonight is the City Clerk, Benita Anderson, and Deputy Clerk, Shania Nashimolan.
And I guess there is a page on parks that we right after special events. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. That's where it sort of is Public Works more than they hear, but I don't know if.
Correct, and I can cover some of that. There is a portion of this budget that are the park ranger's salary. That's sort of the line 05 and personnel expenses. The rest, the $931,000, that's wages for the park playground and fields maintenance personnel. There's a lot of grounds to do groundskeeping throughout the city, and those are the labor costs associated with that. I hope council has appreciated the promotion that we've been giving Public Works and all the great work they're doing. It's not new work. We're just taking pictures now and promoting that work.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's nice to see when they're out there doing things and planting the spring flowers and cleaning stuff up and the mulch in the playground, all those sorts of things. I think it's great to see those highlighted. Absolutely.
And I just want to mention, the partnerships we have with our colleagues in other departments. We work together on a lot of different projects. Our interdepartmental communication, our collaboration, in my opinion, and I've been here 25 years, I don't think it's been better. The department heads, we all work together on our projects and share with each other.
It's wonderful to hear.
Yes.
Last call. Thank you very much, Recreation Department. We appreciate seeing everybody's smiling faces this evening.
Thank you.
Berto and
Okay.
Okay, so while they're getting and moving out, we are going to move into the next section, which maybe this will be quicker than I even think it is, and we'll still try to stay more or less on topic. Not that we're going to go through the whole 376 pages of the city code, but next up is the recodification of the city code. So, Mr. Salmarone, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Joining me for this discussion are our City Clerk, Benita Anderson, and Assistant Director for Code Enforcement, Gilberto Cabrera. Some background. I want to start off with some background. I'll let Bonita kick off with the background on this, and then we'll talk about next steps. And we welcome council's feedback how it would like to proceed with adopting the recodification and new code. I also will be remiss if I do not recognize Ms. J. Davis, who's in the crowd. I actually have her city code binder because it's really still neatly kept. Versus my copy. But I recruited Ms. Davis to assist, give me some feedback on the historic elements of the code. So she also has a copy, and I'll be tapping into her many years of service on council and deep knowledge of our community. So Ms. Anderson, you want to give us some background?
Good evening. Benita Anderson, City Clerk. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for allowing me to share with you the status of the codification project. Last year, June of 2024, we engaged in an agreement with MuniCode in the amount of approximately $14,000. And then afterwards, I provided them with 25 ordinances dating back from 2013 up until May 2023. During that time, they incorporated those ordinances into the 2012 code book, and they provided us with the proof that I provided to you all just recently. The document is currently being reviewed by the department staff, the city solicitor, Mr. Deloach, as well as you all, for any feedback and any revisions to be shared with MuniCode. Today, Mr. Samaroon and Mr. Cabrera, we met with MuniCode to discuss some chapters in the Planning and Community Development Department's section of the code book. And during that conversation, we discussed providing them with the additional ordinances after May 2023 up until present, which is I provided them with 6 additional ordinances up until our last meeting from April 14th. And then so I sent it over to them. And so once we provide them with the feedback from you all, then afterwards it'll take them quite a few months, and hopefully we'll get the updated code and printed code by the end of this year, 2025. And then once we receive it, then council will adopt it.
Okay.
So now moving on to procedural things. During this afternoon's call with MuniCode, actually I learned quite some insightful information. Our legal analysis, an attorney that's working on the code, worked on our code in 1984.
Wow.
Yes, so
long tenure there.
Yes, long tenured. The code that we have and that you see on our website is from 2012, and there's several ordinances that have been adopted since that Ms. Anderson referenced to that are being sent to MuniCode to update in our new code. In our conversation this afternoon, we were able to get an extension at no cost on the May 13th deadline that we were getting. We will incur costs on the additional edits that we make, and we're going to talk about those edits tonight. The code, as we have submitted it to council, there are no substantive changes to it. It takes our existing code, recodifies it, updates obsolete language, and makes compliance checks. And there's some editorial and legal notes with any proposed change in there. We are running into an issue with that Ms. Terry Ruby mentioned at the work session, where we have compliance issues around erosion and sediment control and in other parts of the code that we need to update. So we have an opportunity now to make those updates. In speaking with Roger, the attorney for MuniCode, we determined that the best course of action was, instead of doing a supplemental down the road, is to take our time and make the edits, the compliance edit, as necessary to the existing code, and then we adopt that code with those changes. What those compliance additions would be to chapter 4, chapter 14. They deal with the erosion control and the property maintenance code. And Mr. Correa, if you want to join us at the table.
welcome to join us for that portion. There's the third chapter that we need to update, which is the zoning code. That's chapter 20. However, we do not have the legal authority to adopt the zoning code on our own. We have to have it approved by county council, and then it comes to us for approval. So that would cause a delay. So those are the three chapters that we need to update eventually. It's best to do them now while we're going through the recodification and adopting a new code. I feel confident that we could navigate those changes to our code because they're primarily compliance requirements. And speaking with Roger this afternoon, Roger also mentioned that if there are other changes that council wants to consider as part of the code, then this is a good time to do it. It would, in long term, it would save us money, potentially saving us time that we're adopting a new code. The charter amendments, they are gender-specific language in the charter that would need to be updated per council's request. However, that needs to be done as separate charter amendments, and that would have to have its own process. So those charter amendments cannot be part of this ordinance adopting a new code.
Yeah, and I think that's worth noting that this 376-page document about the first, is it about the first 50 pages? Is the charter, I think, or 50, I think so the if anyone's following along, that first part will need to be part of the charter review task force that we are working to stand up. So we're really looking from the code, which starts on, it was about 58. I think 58, page 58 of the, labeled as 58 of 370, but actually 64 of the PDF. So the first part, separate process, we're talking about sort of 64 to 376.
So next step for the administration is to get those edits for chapter 4 and 14, which deal with the property maintenance and the erosion and sediment control. Seek county council's approval for chapter 20 for the zoning code, and then incorporate that into the edits of the code and bring those to council.
And because it's chapter 4 right now, doesn't it say something about fire?
Yes, there is a fire code portion in there, and buildings and building regulations.
And so that's
Are you looking at the old code or the new code?
Well, I'm looking at what I thought was
The proof.
The proof, yeah. And then chapter 4, unless I'm...
So the recodification doesn't follow our existing code neatly over to the new code. So when I make reference to chapter 4 and 14, I'm making a reference to the current code. Those are the updates that we need to make. So chapter 14 is building and building regulations, which is that property maintenance code, building code. Chapter 14, it's planning and development. And then chapter 20 is zoning, which, as you know, our zoning is determined by county council. Those are the reference to the old chapters. In the new chapter, Roger,
Yeah, and I think I just have the new one in front of me, so that's why I was confused, because in the new one, so it's part 1, 2 Code of Ordinances. I'm just trying to figure out why, because what I see labeled as chapter 4 is actually is animals.
Yes, and so
that's the new.
So the current chapter 4 will become chapter 6, buildings and building regulations. So that starts on page 111, and then there's a subdivision.
There. Okay.
Mm-hmm. As you can see, that's being reorganized and expanded by area. So there's the Division 1, which is generally, Division 2, administration, Division 3, general requirements, Division 4, light ventilation and occupancy limitations, Division 5, plumbing, facilities, and light and fixture requirements, and so on.
Okay.
So chapter 4 will become chapter 6. Chapter 14 becomes... Bert, do you remember what he said where 14 is going? Fourteen is being nestled in a subsection. I don't have my notes in front of me on that particular item, but that chapter 14 is moving in another existing chapter.
Okay. So maybe we can summarize, is this chapter, what is now chapter 6, is that all new? Or is it just parts of it that are new?
Parts of it are new, but we also are awaiting Mr. Cabrera and Ms. Ruby's comments on those on those two chapters. So those will be updated.
Okay.
But in the new chapter 6, you will see what's being modified and with any references associated with it. Up that chapter on my screen. Starts at page 111 out of the 370. Do you have that? So it's page 111 out of 370 or page 117 out of the PDF file. So you see that there's that reference where it's coming over. Looking at the residential eviction notices, that's just bringing existing code over. There's no modifications to that. Likewise for building construction, that's coming over. You don't start seeing some edits until page 112 out of 370, where the construction safety and stop work orders makes reference to, this is just an example, section 625B, all excavation and construction should comply with the American Standard Safety Code for Building Construction, American Standards Association. That's an obsolete references. The state and the county follow the International Building Code, and we are adopting that as the standard. So that's being struck through, and the addition is the International Building Code is adopted by the city or other applicable standard as adopted by the state and by the county Department of Environmental Services.
And so I think that's just an example of something that it's not a substantive change. It's just saying now we need to refer to this different code that is what the standard is now.
Correct. Okay. And that's where we follow the International Building Code for property maintenance inspections. And so that is our standard. That's the state standard and the county standard. So that's an example of what that change happening. You'll see those similar changes. At the bottom of the page, you'll see what are legal and editorial notes, and any references to other existing code.
Okay. Any questions at this point? Let's do from council questions first. Any council questions at this point? We'll do questions from the audience in a moment. Mr. Orleans, you can put your hand down for the time being. Yeah.
So we are still waiting for some updates from staff then.
Correct.
Before we're at a place where we're really ready council should fully review. I mean, we can review now, but understanding that we've got a little bit more work to do here.
Right. That's correct, Ms. Pompey. And I welcome council's feedback on how do you want to review the code, and how do we track any changes that you want to suggest. The muni code team is flexible on however we want to work this, whether we want to just send edits based on specific section of the code, or do we want to highlight the changes directly on the proof and send that back, or if council wants to make any substantive changes, as long as council approves of those processes, we can make substantive changes. They're sending us their proof as it meets state requirements and updating the code, but no substantive changes.
And I think the things that I noticed that there are a few places in the sections about some of the advisory boards. It's actually, it's kind of interesting to me that some of the advisory boards and committees are in the charter and some are in the city code. And that's just sort of an interesting difference. And I don't know, that might be something to think about as part of the charter review task force, is should some of those that are currently in the charter actually be in the city code and not in the charter, or are there some that should remain in the charter? But I did notice some references to like chairman. I think there was, and some other, and also like, charges against, so this is in the, no, I guess that's, sorry, that is the charter, not the, maybe most of them are just in the charter, maybe, okay, so maybe it is all in the charter. I think most of the gendered references seem to be in the charter, not in the city code.
Correct.
I thought some of them were in the city code, but now as I'm searching through, and so that's something that we'll just have to change as part of the charter review task force, I think.
Correct, and we spoke with Roger Miriam about this this afternoon, and the anything in the charter will require a charter amendment for even for the simple city code. They will do a final pass through once we provide all the edits, and he guaranteed us that any gender specific wording will be addressed, and if they for some reason miss any and we catch it after the books are printed, we've requested similar books to this to have in the office, but the code will be updated digitally. And any mistakes that are caught after the fact, they will reprint all the books at their expense. And given the way that these books are bound, there's not going to be a challenge how to swap pages if we need to swap pages.
Yeah. And I think, so Mayor Jordan had sent a couple of comments. I'm trying to find those. I think they were more specific things. And I guess that's part of the question of, is it going to be, I mean, similar to the way we've tried to do with the budget, is it going to be, what is going to be the easiest way to make notes about some of these things? Is it, I mean, I don't know if that'll be, it's a little bit longer than the budget actually, but we have the online documents where things can be highlighted. Is it worth doing something like that, or do we want to have people send lists of things and say on this page this thing?
I mean, I think it'd be easier if there was like one source of truth where you had one document where everybody was putting in comments where you could see other people's comments and highlight it there, versus trying to then track changes in multiple emails and multiple documents. I mean, I know depending upon the level of the license for Adobe, we could do that through, if we have the professional version of that.
We have that now. We have the Adobe Cloud license, so we created links for council to provide their editorial comments to the budgets. So we have those licensing, so we could upload this into our Acrobat Cloud account and collect that feedback there. And I would note the proposed edits, or just the ideas that the mayor sent over. In section 1.8, the municipal infractions fines, in our code it's up to $1,000 because that's per state limitations. In this session, that municipal infractions was changed. So that's a change that happened at the state level, that at the time that the proof was generated, that had not
That
passed
wasn't
law.
that wasn't.
So that's something that we will need to send back to Municode and say this has changed and it will need to be reflected. The other pieces, there's section 263 about competitive bidding. There's a list of companies that, at least one of them is no longer in existence. That's written in our city code of which companies that we could procure service from that are exempt from competitive bidding process. And those are pretty straightforward. Pepco, there's only one electricity provider. There's Washington Gas and WSSC. Well, there's no other water district than WSSC.
So I think in terms of, that seems like that may be the easiest way, if we can set up a document where council members, if we notice some of these things, can go in and sort of highlight, and you can put in a little note about it. I think as long as they are like small edits like that, where it's like, oh, the law has changed, I think those are also not substantive. That's just sort of correcting things that have changed since this draft was put out, or things that have changed since the 2012 code. That seems like that makes sense to me. And then for those that are a little bit more, so I guess maybe we should talk a little bit about with Mr. Cabrero about the the new, sort of the new chapters, or the new pieces that are still more coming into compliance, but maybe are a little bit lengthier, a little bit of a summary of what those, sort of what's contained within those.
Your microphone.
Yeah.
It's just going to be new language that the county adopted. For example, the heating situations. Our code says 65. The county's reference 70 degrees. And again, with the AC, those changes, they're minor changes in our book. It's not like a whole page of edits. It's minor changes to it.
And are those in this draft yet? Or those are not in this draft yet? Okay. Any other council questions, or we can get a few questions from the audience?
I mean, I would agree with you. I don't think we're going to need to walk through the code change by change, unless I think your suggestion is good that we go through, and if we have questions, we note it, and maybe we have a work session where we discuss those questions about specific changes. Is that your...
Yeah, or even, I think if there's anything that seems like it's substantive, or that when we mark it as identified as substantive, that we need to certainly discuss. I think minor edits, I don't know if we need to, I guess if the time, so it sounds like the timeline compared to when we talked earlier, Mr. Selmer, and it sounds like the timeline is actually a little bit longer than at least I had thought originally.
And it's longer than what we were initially told via email, and I forward that email from Roger Miriam about the deadline. In our conversation, we are not going to incur a cost taking our time. Now, however, the management team at Municode wants this to move along because they're dedicating resources. But we made the case that there are other things that we need to update for Chapter 4, 14, and 20, and he understood that that's going to take some time, especially having to have the county council approve the zoning code before we adopt it. And he acknowledged that would take some time, and we would not incur cost on that time. However, we are going to incur cost on the additional page edits. So as pages are added to the code, there's a per page cost associated with that. And that's going to be difficult to determine. We have a per page cost, but we're not sure. While Mr. Cabrera stated that there are minor changes.
It could be on a lot of different pages.
Correct.
So what is your estimated timeline for updating those chapters and then also sending Chapter 20 to the county council? Are we looking at revisiting this in June, July, August, September? Like when are we looking at revisiting this for a sort of second follow-up?
We initially planned this project to be an 18-month project. So we are well within that timeline. This was started last May. So we're now on month 11 out of the 18-month proposed timeline. I think that we can get this done within the next 7 months. There's no need to rush it. However, we have an ambitious agenda. And so the more projects we can clear, the easier it is for us to move on to the next thing. Additionally, as I've seen the legislative priorities for council, and there's legislation that we're looking to update and adopt. And if the city code, if it lingers, then we have to keep making changes to it as we're adopting new ordinances. And that just further delays when we can get the code on the cloud and make it readily available to the public and also to ourselves as we make changes to the code. So it's a balancing act. There's a strategy to it.
But in theory, after we go through this process of recodification, it will be easier to update the online version as we make new changes, as we pass ordinances or things that change the city code?
Correct. The licensing package that we bought or that we paid for allows us to propose ordinance changes to council directly using the system templates. So we can make edits directly on the system. When council approves and goes through its proper procedures to adopt a new code, we just publish to our code. So we purchase a self-publishing platform that we can publish our code. Now, if we need Municode's assistance going through procedure, we can pay for that. But we bought the license that allows us to self-publish.
But so that will help that we won't have the code that is, if it's the 2012 code that's up on the website right now, we will not have that 13-year-old code up there on the website anymore going forward. I think Mr. Orleans had his hand up earlier, and then Mr. Hartman.
New Orleans. It's been a long, long time since I attempted to read the code. At the time, I thought much of it, I can remember this far back, I thought much of it seemed boilerplate, like it was coming from a proposed municipal code book that had been published many, many decades earlier. So it's certainly due for an update. I recall that in the Greenbelt Code, there's a provision for the licensing of taxi cabs. And as far as I know, in my lifetime, or certainly in the last 21 years, there are no taxi cabs licensed by the city of Greenbelt. So some of what was in there presumably could be removed unless, of course, some entrepreneur wants to start a taxi system in the city. In any event, and I've never understood fully, and I've expressed this previously, why we had to contract with Municico, however it's pronounced, to do this for us. But we have, so be it, whatever the contract costs. As we proceed further, and they provide a draft, further drafts of the revised code, obviously council has seen electronically at least versions of what's been proposed thus far. I don't think it should just be council that has the opportunity to read through the code. An electronic version of the proposed code should be available to all residents of the city to read, or even better yet, as has been suggested in the past, we might enlist Chris Cherry and the Greenbelt Recreation Department to enlist some kids to have a reading, a state reading of the code, and maybe more residents would come out for it than would necessarily come to a meeting of city council. But some creative way to involve more residents in understanding what's in the code, even if it includes such old things as Greenbelt licensing of taxi cab.
Well, and I would like to point out, Mr. Orleans, that in fact, if you go into the agenda packet for tonight, there is a link to this word-proof document that is part of the agenda packet for tonight. It's not included in the PDF because it's a very large document, but there is a link to it that is available in the agenda packet for tonight. Mr. Hartman.
Well, Mr. Hartman's coming up. I'll make a reference of another obsolete area in our code is the licensing and registration of all bicycles. So under a current code, it requires that no bicycle should be licensed unless it is in good condition, has adequate braking and signaling devices, and a serial or identifying number stamped on the frame.
Now,
so I think I'm in violation. I got 3 bikes that I haven't had registered in the city.
Now that looks like that is one of the ones that Municode is suggesting to remove.
Correct. That's
yes.
on page 372.
372.
That entire section has been strike through, and it makes a reference that this section of the code is obsolete, and then it makes reference to state code, the transportation article 21-1205.
Yeah. Well, and I noticed further down that at this point there was a service charge of 50 cents if the police impound your bicycle. So that was when 50 cents was a service fee that was meaningful was quite some time ago. Anyway, go ahead, Mr. Hartman.
Oh, I'm having fun listening to you. A couple of things. Could you? I know I missed this part of it, but what's so special about May 22nd of 2023 that it would stop? And
it's really just an administrative day. It's when we entered into the agreement with the Municode to update the code up to that point. Okay. Because at that time we handed over the existing code and all the ordinances that had been adopted up to that point. So they've been working over the last several months to incorporate those changes into the proof that we have now. Based on today's conversation, we have agreed that they will accept all charter amendments and ordinances that we have adopted up until today, and anything future until we sign off on the proof and send it to them. From the moment that we send it to them. So if we were to send this code, as a hypothetical, come Monday, council adopted this code, we would send the code, we would tell the Municode that council has accepted, approves, and they will send us a final version that will come before council within 2 months for council to adopt the final code. Ms. Anderson, did I get that timing right?
Okay. About what Mr. Orlean said about the public having access to it, I'm assuming that somewhere in your agreement you're requiring it to be 508 compliant. Section 508 of the Rehab Act.
Yes, it is a searchable, and it's searchable now. So if you were to open the link, it's searchable and it meets the reading standards. Our Municode platform will have those read out loud functions.
Okay. Also, and you did say it will be searchable. And is the history of a particular code section included for historical purposes? Are you able to has different versions of this been archived so that you can see the progression of how a certain section or has progressed over the years with new changes?
Those documents we were required to keep those forever. This is one of the archive requirements. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to see it, there's only been three different code books. One from 1971, one from 1984, which Roger worked on, and the 2012 that we use now. And then a fourth one when council approves it. Everything in between has been ordinances. So that is the administrative historical element that we have, but there are pieces of that history that I don't know how well documented they are. If that makes sense, like what contributed to the code change from 1971 to 1984?
Well, or specific sections, how a section has been amended. When you look at legislation from the state, for example, it has a history of changes to it, and if something is modified in a certain way, you can search it and see what the previous historical archived versions of it. And you did say that. Go ahead.
On that specific item, there are trackings for each section. So if I look at a page, let's say what's open right now for me, I have section 34107, compliance with laws. This is again related to bicycles. Each section has a date that it's adopted and a date that was modified, and what ordinance modified that section of the code. Okay. So there is that historical there that reference on ordinances, but the history of what led to that change, what discussion led to that change, will not be there.
No, I meant the actual text of it. And finally, I guess Mr. Orleans was interested in the taxi section, having been a hack in New York. You might want to be considering opening up a taxi stand here in Greenbelt, maybe. I don't know.
And I think at least some of that language is actually in the charter, not the code. So if that's something that if the charter review task force decides some of those things are not relevant, then they can recommend to council that we remove those. But so then I guess the question is, these other codes, this is probably more than we're going to get, but there's not going to be like a hyperlink where this can link to that section of the 1984 code or anything like that.
We don't have that code. Do we have those?
Okay. So the older codes, do we even have PDF versions of the older codes of the 71 or 84? No, so we don't even have those in.
Well, we have the books, and we can scan those if we need to scan those. There'll be lengthy documents, but
yeah. You know. So that might be something to think about, to be able to have those older versions available, if not precisely hyperlinked, and maybe not. They may be harder to make accessible, those older documents, but at least accessible in the 508 sense, not accessible in the sense of just putting them on a website. But if they're scanned and like optical character recognition, that could take some cleanup. But it is the history is an interesting question, absolutely.
To add to Mr. Orlean's statement about the taxi cab, that those references are in the charter, page 29 of the 370, and some are very gender specific, and and some are older terms, such as public hackmen, taxi cabmen, drawmen, cabmen, expressmen. So those, if council would like to make those changes, those would be charter amendment changes.
Right. And I think that needs to be, I mean, we already have a process that we're just trying to get going related to that. So just one of the many, many things that we're trying to work on right now. So any other questions, or I'm going to try to summarize what our next steps are. So I think the next steps, it seems like there's a few chapters that staff needs to work on, and then we have that chapter 20, the zoning, that needs to go to the county council. And sort of simultaneous to that, or maybe at least in somewhat in conjunction, council should look through, and so staff needs to set up a document where we can put in comments, like the minor sort of editorial comments in one collective place, and then council needs to look through and add their comments sort of simultaneous, but also after those changes are made. So those are sort of things happening next up. And then we'll, after we get back approval from the county council, which we don't know exactly what that timeline will be, then that might be the time for a follow-up work session, just to clarify anything that needs to be clarified in preparation for actually putting something to vote to. But the idea is to adopt the code, the changes, these non-substantive changes all at once. Although I think if we identify places in the code where we want to make substantive changes, that could be something we could add to our legislative priorities list. So I think as we're reading through the 300 pages of the document, I think, yeah, keep note of things. It's like, oh, that's something I would like to actually address through a change in the code. Does that make sense?
When on the public access, it's uploaded on the Granicus system, not necessarily the most accessible place. We can create a landing page where this document exists, both the current code and the proof. Is there anything else council would like to see from a public access perspective?
I would say more power to anybody who wants to go through and read the pages and take a look at it. I was surprised as we were doing the Charter Review Task Force interviews how many people had read the charter, which is, you know, the first chunk of this document, but not the largest portion of it. So anybody who wants to read the legalese, it is very dense. I have not read through all of it yet, but I will do my best to get through all of it. It is very dense.
It is a fun read, though. Okay.
Anything else? Okay, then at this point, our final item of the evening is to go, so we need to go into, Oh, yours.
Well, you know, when you asked me before if I wanted to have this executive session, I thought the mayor was going to be here. So since he's not here, I'd like to hold this off until time in the future when he can be here.
Okay, if that's, no, that's fair. I think he thought he would be able to be available online, and I think he was not able to be online. Okay, well, if that's, that's right, I did forget. I did want to go through briefly, before we went into the special session anyway, just go over briefly upcoming meetings, as well as just sort of highlight things on the agenda for Monday, just so that, because I think that will so people are aware of what will be in the packet. So yeah, if we can look at the meetings, Ms. Lashley Mullen, and forget that I banged the gavel. I just wanted to get to bang the gavel, that's all.
You can bang it again, put us back into work session.
Yeah, so we've got the regular meeting. We'll go through the agenda for that here in a minute. We've got public safety work session coming up on Wednesday next week. So I think, you know, as soon as possible, if you can get questions to staff for public safety. We've got the Four Cities meeting next Thursday. The first, which will be here in this room at 7 p.m., and I think Ms. Anderson has shared the agenda out, so if there's any comments on that. I think the work session on the 5th is going to be a double work session, economic development as well as discussing solid waste and the proposal for a pay-as-you-throw way of charging for trash. It's sort of a metering for your trash instead of a flat fee. And Green Aces has been working very hard on that recommendation. So that will be the expectation is that they will have the recommendation. They voted on it last night and are working on the actual, all of the language and working out the final details, but it should be in the packet to accept on Monday. So we'll be talking about that as well as the food scraps project continuation. Which does it make sense to do first? Economic development first and then the solid waste, or?
Economic development.
Okay, do that first and then try to do the solid waste next.
And within the schedule, we have a request from GHI again. I received an email yesterday requesting a more stern request, still very polite, that council meet with the board of directors for GHI to discuss the solid waste rates, street lights, and a few other issues. Given the schedule, I find it very difficult without bumping something to add that work session with GHI prior to the budget approval. So I welcome council's feedback if you see an opportunity to add that.
Well, and I know they have been invited to discuss the solid waste, so maybe that part maybe we can address on the 5th, sort of topically rather than specifically with GHI. The street lights, does that have budget implications, or is that something that could wait till after we pass the budget?
The street lights, it does have budget implications, however, only from the sense that it's saving us money by passing those lights over to GHI. And I think we presented to council that we discussed how those reassignment of lights process worked. We're reassigning lights to the commercial properties, assigning the lights on 193 to SHA and whatnot. So there is a budget implication that if right now our proposal is that those lights will now be responsibility of GHI. The budget contemplates that those lights would be responsibility of GHI. The one thing that we haven't quite budgeted for in 2026, and part of it is because we have it in 2025 budget, is the acquisition lights. We've set aside $80,000 in this year's budget, but we are not at that point where we're acquiring the lights. PEPCO has not finalized that process. We met a couple weeks ago, and they say they were inching closer to submitting their tariff application and submitting the valuation sheets for us on what our lights will cost and how we move forward with acquisition, but we haven't executed anything on that. It is a topic for discussion at the 4 cities meeting on May 1st. I've shared the information with the 4 cities, the content of my last meeting with PEPCO, so it's more a waiting game on the streetlights.
Well, I suppose one option, I think discussing the solid waste on the 5th, one option would be to do after the ACE Student Awards. That will probably, that's the only option I can see before the budget.
So does council have to vote to approve transferring these lights over to GHI? Like, what's our role, like the specific role that council plays in that transfer?
No, council's not voting to transfer those lights. It had to do with on what property the lights sit. So anything that sits on our property, it's our obligation. So with the exception of the lights that we have in Berwyn Heights, but they're actually pointing on Greenbelt Station Parkway. Those are the only exceptions.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out what would be the point if council doesn't have any role in reassigning those lights. I'm just trying to figure out what we would be discussing in this work session. You know what I mean? Like if this is a function of, this is like an administrative function of the city, I'm trying to figure out what our role here as council is in that conversation.
Yeah, I think it has more to do with what has been the custom or the practice, that it's been common that the GHI board meets with council board as a body, and while staff do a lot of the work. It's a conversation of the governing bodies to talk through these issues. On the streetlights, the request from James, Mr. Kleiger, was that if we transition to LED conversion, that they would like to be a part of any of those plans to be able to leverage economies of scale or be able to get any economic benefit from doing it as a group and saving time and effort or money on any LED conversions, which I stated that, yes, we would make that available as we would with any other partner that we have. So we discussed doing the light acquisition and conversion as a four cities coalition, right, to leverage the economies of scale. So I said that I think that will be possible. I don't know that. I think eventually whatever agreement we sign with a contract for LED conversion, obviously that's council's approval, but in terms of deciding whether the lights go to GHI or they be part of that program, I think that can be a staff recommendation.
Okay,
So-
I'm just trying to figure, I'm like, what would we have to add to that conversation? That's what I'm trying to figure out, because it seems like you would really be the one having that conversation, because you're the one who really understands this process, when we as council have not been at all involved in this process.
Right, and Mr. Kleiger shared that it's a long-standing practice that the governing bodies have these kinds of conversations, and I'm raising it to council.
Well, I think that we can discuss the solid waste with them on the 5th, but I'm not sure there's a good way to fit in something else until June. So we might just have to, I don't see, and I don't really like the idea of doing it after the ACE Student Awards, because it's nice to be able to congratulate the students
and
and
they can
talk
take
to them and take
pictures
pictures and all that sort of
yeah,
things.
I
I
wouldn't
don't
wanna rush
really,
them.
I mean, so I would say they can discuss solid waste on the 5th, and anything else may have to wait until after we pass the budget, and I think we can talk about what the purpose of that session, and could it then be, again, another half work session if they just want to raise these particular issues and have a chance to talk to us about it, but really it's happening at the admin level.
The only question I would have is for the recognition groups, what is our process for going through those? Because we've split them up.
So it's a timed meeting with each recognition group.
Okay.
The Recreation Department organizes that, and some of them will come in person, some of them will be on Zoom, but it is a 10 or 15-minute time slot for each of the recognition groups. 20, is it 20? Something like, yeah. So it is, so there's not really room on those days. They are slotted in with discussions for each of the recognition groups. So I think we could decide if at some point that isn't the way we want to do things, but that is the way that it has been done. That's the way it's set up for this year. So I don't think there's any wiggle room on those two work sessions. I don't think we've seen the final schedule yet, but there's usually not a lot of wiggle room on
They're
those
packed
work
in
sessions.
from what I remember last year.
It's first come, first serve, so, or not in terms of the signing up, so the times is whoever signs up for whatever time slots.
Yeah.
Not that it changes whether or not we can do it before the budget, but I believe I had asked for the advisory board chairs meeting.
Yes.
I unfortunately have day job work travel on the 4th. So if possible, if we could move it to the next week, either Monday or Wednesday is fine. And then if we want to slot that first meeting after the budget adoption for the conversation with GHI, that could be in that slot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, we have some things to look at in June, but I think we can. I don't know that we need to get into more of that now, because I really am going to try to get us out by 10 o'clock. And
Right.
I would like to look at the agenda for Monday.
Okay.
Anything else on the meetings?
Yes,
Summer?
I would like to note that at the request of the mayor, the Greenridge House meeting will
Yes.
occur at Greenridge House, and the closed session would occur here at the municipal building. So
Okay.
we'll wrap up there and then move to
And then
have
come
the
back
closed
here.
session here. Correct.
Okay. And I think that's the way it used to be. I think it's been here and they've been attended virtually, but that's my understanding it used to be
Correct.
over at Greenridge House prior to the pandemic, so prior to my tenure on council.
Right, now on the agenda.
Yeah, we can just want to go through the agenda quickly so that there aren't surprises for anybody on what's coming up.
Do you want me to quickly cover it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have some proclamations. I do not have the list, but we'll have until Friday to add those to the agenda. We'll have a legislative session briefing with the state's legislator. We have Ms. Williams and sure, yes, please show the agenda. And Senator Washington confirmed to provide updates at the meeting, and I believe is Ms. Watson is confirmed for the Four Cities meeting. Then we go into two public hearings, one on the budget, the second one on the charter amendment. We have a presentation on the results of the 2023 community questionnaire. We apologize for the delay on this. We're moving around to this agenda because the questionnaire results are in the budget, so we want you to have those numbers as you move to approve the budget and further meetings. Then we have the legislation, which is the actual charter amendment for the compensation of council, and then currently we have this ordinance 14, planning and development. We had thought about bringing it as a separate ordinances, but as we discussed here, we're actually just going to incorporate those changes to the code. So we'll be removing that item. We have the approval of the Budick Attic Master Plan, which given the agenda, it looks like it's going to be a lengthy agenda with the proposal for the use of the Armory site for composting and the legislative wrap-up briefing with Mr. Carrington and Associates, and then discussion of the legislative priorities. We think we can move, or we should move, the approval of the Budick Attic Master Plan to a later meeting, unless council wants to have that discussion at the next meeting.
I think that's fine. Are we going to discuss, is this going to be the discussion to formalize the reappointment process? Danielle, are you going to be ready to have that conversation?
I don't think so, because we need to have the executive session that's coming after the closed session after the Greenridge House, I think will inform part of this reappointment process.
Okay, so we'll
I think if we can remove that and move that to the next regular meeting. Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, I suspect that the legislative session wrap-up, that could take a little bit of time. Talking with Mr. Carrington could take a little bit of time. So I'm not opposed to moving the Buddy Attic to a later one. I'm hoping that the proposal for the use of space at the Armory site for composting doesn't need to have a lot of discussion, because we did have a work session on that topic already.
I mean, you're jinxing everything by saying that.
I know.
But I agree with you in theory, but I feel like every time I think that that's the case, the opposite seems to prove. But I do think that the Buddy Attic Master Plan is going to generate a lot of comment.
That's definitely going to generate
comment. So I think
comment.
we should try and have that at a meeting where there are fewer things on the agenda for sure.
Okay, so we'll move that to the next meeting.
That will be a lot. And I think discussing, I don't know how long Mr. Carrington's going to take with his wrap up, but if we're also then going to discuss our legislative priorities for the coming year, that could take some time.
that could take some time as well.
So I want to, I just want to make sure we're giving everything the time that it deserves.
And I think there's a few things. Greg already talked about some of the pavilions that we're already moving ahead, but I don't think there's anything that if we delay the Buddy Attic Master Plan formal approval a little bit longer, I don't think there's anything that's going to interfere with. Can you think of anything?
No, I can't think of anything. We have the pavilions, but
Because that's already in the works.
We already approved them and paid for them. And,
correct. The other thing that we're working on, but it is not directly associated with the park, are the EV stations. But we're a long ways before anything goes in there, and obviously council would need to approve whatever work is to go there. So I think we're fine. There's no issue there. Likewise, if we needed more time, we can move the results of the 2023 communities questionnaire too. That's not. That isn't a time-sensitive action. If it needs discussion, then you want to give it time. But if council thinks that
if the results are ready, it could also be one that we put. If we put the report, and then if it looks like things are taking a long time, we can bump it, leave it there for now, but bump it, but be prepared to bump it if we need to, if it's getting long.
We'll reorganize that and put that at the bottom of the list.
I think that makes sense.
So it makes it easier to bump it at the
beginning.
Yeah,
I think, because if that's not time sensitive, if it's at the end, then if we have time to get to it, then we can discuss it.
Great.
Anything else? I forgot to ask about information items at the beginning. There's a lot of events coming up on Saturday.
Yes, I had one, just a quick update on the fire. We had a fire yesterday. One unit was displaced due to the smoke and water damage. This is at 34 Crescent Point, just 32. I'm sorry. Thank you, Michael. 32. Michael. We were out there together. The one unit that was affected was occupied. Obviously, the unit below it is also condemned because of the water damage, but it was vacant. So only one individual affected, and they have been relocated by property management on another unit on the property.
As far as this weekend goes, I think it would be helpful if we could use the city van to help us get from the Earth Day event to the youth baseball opening day, just because if we don't, like, the parking is such an issue over there that it would make it difficult for us to make it. And also, I don't know if anyone has reached out to the Little League to see if they could just hold off. For
Yeah, no, I actually ran into Patrick at Mary Lee Williamson's garden party
good.
on, was that Sunday? I think that was Sunday. And he mentioned that was fine, that he's happy to, I think he was already sort of expecting to do that based on what we did last year. So they'll still have people gather for the parade, but they'll have people kind of, walk a little slowly and get there so that he is aware of the conflict.
Because I think the other events should be fine, like the Touch a Truck. Like, we can all probably get there under our own steam, whoever wants to go to that, and the autism awareness event. And yeah, but I think it's just those two events being bookended like that, and then since it's already so hard to park over there, it's going to be really hard to park on.
So last year we met at Buddy Attic, did the activity there. Then at 9:15 we went over to the baseball field.
But this year it's not at.
It's at Spring Hill Lake this year.
Okay, Spring Hill Lake.
Yeah.
We'll meet there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
Or we can meet somewhere local and drive there and then drive back. We can work that offline too.
Yeah, I think we can figure out those details. But
Great.
yeah.
I just wanted to make that.
No, I think that makes sense because those are the things that have the tightest connection, so to speak.
Okay.
Anything else? Yeah.
Of baseball, I wonder if anyone had been in touch with you, Josue. I know that someone had been in touch with Code about the flooding that's happening. They were having some trouble between GHI and WSSC getting that under control. GHI tried to address it over at McDonald Field, and now it's apparently worse. So this has never hit your...
No, it has not come to my
Okay,
attention.
all right. I'll reach out to Craig and see how things are going.
I can take a look at it. I'm out of the office tomorrow. I'm at the city manager's conference, but I'm back Friday. But I'll have somebody check on it tomorrow. Mm-hmm.
And just in case, so we will not be going into a special meeting in closed session, awaiting, that was at Mr. Roberts' request, and since the mayor isn't available, we will figure out how to schedule that at a different time. Okay?
Yeah.